Russell Roberts is up next to talk about the latest sort of update in the national data linkage on premature mortality, and also to discuss a bit on where to from here. Russell is with Charles Sturt University and is the National Director of Equally Well Australia. Welcome, Russell Roberts.
What a potential moment in Australian mental health history that we've got here. You know, it's a great example. Here we are. Whether it is a moment in Australian mental health history is up to us and what happens over the next few days. But an awesome start. Thank you to Chris and Tessa for that piece of work. Gold standard co-design. And thank you for the Australian Department of Health and Ageing for supporting it with, as Chris said, a one line: develop up a consumer resource to equalise the power inequities. That's fantastic. And also thank you, as it disappeared, to our sponsors who recognise the value of this. The department funds this meeting so that it's a free conference, and conferences and forums like this are not inexpensive. Also, all those lists of supporters of the commissions who've given bursaries to enable people who are not supported by their organisation or not working with an organisation to attend and have all their costs covered. Thank you to them. And if you're a recipient of that bursary, if you get a chance, it would be nice to say thanks and give them some feedback about, you know, the value of this, if it proves to be valuable. It's a big commitment. Some people have to sort of go out on a limb to, you know, sponsor this money. So I really encourage, one, I would like to honour it, but two, I'd encourage you to honour this commitment by the government's commissions. It shows, I think, that the potential value and the voice that Equally Well has with these organisations. The other thing, and before we move on to my little bit, the other thing I'd like to say is the next step for that consumer resource, because it is about equalising some of those power inequities. You know, the work we did with Lived Experience Australia a year or two ago showed that only 20% of mental health workers ask people about their physical health condition. 20%, shame on us. 50%, if someone raises a complaint or a concern about their physical health or medication, they don't take them seriously. Really? Really? It's unacceptable. The resource is about changing that power dynamic so that you go with some power. That, you know, there's so much the doctor, the clinician, and the patient. We've got to change that dynamic. You know, they're here to serve us, and that's what we're trying to do. The next step of this is to get this endorsed by the governments and the professional organisations. We've had initial conversations with them saying, this is what we're doing, and we're going to come back to you so that when you go to your GP or your psychologist, Jenny, or your exercise physiologist, Simon, or the psychiatrist, John, then they go, oh, where's this come from? And you can go and say, it's endorsed by your college, you know, as an important resource. Because of the power dynamic, you come with something, often they'll dismiss it, just like they dismiss our physical health concerns. They'll dismiss whatever, you know, you've got this from Professor Google. Where's that come from? So this is why the next step is really important to get places like the College of GPs to have their sign and their logo on it. Interesting for me, it's going to be an interesting chat. We've had this conversation with them and said, yeah, we're up for that conversation. We've flipped the consultation stuff here. Normally, like, the professions do all of this, and at the very last moment they go back to the consumers and say, what do you reckon? Oh, yeah, it's nice, all right, I suppose. We've flipped it. We've had this proper gold standard co-design, which then we're going back to the organisation saying, now we've done it, what do you reckon about this? Be interesting how they respond. They'll say, why haven't I been involved from the start? Just like we've been saying for 10 years. So it's going to be an interesting process. At the moment, good faith. All with good faith to say, yes, we're keen to engage in this. I hope from the College of GPs and the Australian Societies for Lifestyle Medicine that we'll get these things, because it will be, I think, useful. Won't it be good for people to be ready to have therapeutic conversations? And that's what they're here for. And that's why clinicians work. They don't want to be bad people. They want to help. And, you know, it warmed my heart to see the co-design here, because that's what collective impact's about as well. The people with lived experience, the clinicians, the researchers, the policymakers, we all want the same thing, and we want to work together. And really, hopefully, today is a significant day in the history of mental health, because we will work together to take this a few more steps. Now, I'll just... So once again, can we just thank the folks from Tessa, Chris and the team? Now I just need some help from the IT person to find out where my presentation is and how I progress through that. Here we go. And I need to press it at that. Awesome. We've, a little bit like the consumer resource, we've spent 2 years, another one line in the Australian government to sort of link national data to try and start to track our progress at reducing the premature mortality of people living with mental illness. This is a difficult conversation because it impacts us. It's our lives that we're talking about, and the data is disturbing. And it's data that relates to us, our families, and the ones that we love. So I apologise for the fact that it could be a difficult situation. If you feel uncomfortable, go for a walk, tune into YouTube or something, go outside, get a drink or something like that, and completely respect that you'll need to sort of have self-protective behaviours. Because one of the people in terms of our co-design group, or our consultation group, was saying, well, you're just telling me again that my health is crap. I'm going to die early. It's like, what's the point of that? But on the other hand, we need to acknowledge this. The only way we'll change the inequity in health outcomes if we acknowledge the truth and have the truth and the data to back up what we know from our own personal experience. So it's a little bit of a balance. You have to be careful about what we say, but on the other hand, it's a conversation we need to have, and we need to have now, because collective impact, a lot of this forum after this is about us working together. So we need to say, what are we going to do together to change this? So really, and you'll notice that you've got the reports. They're distributed on the table, a 16-page report which summarises some of the data that I have. So I'm not going to spend that much time on that data. You'll notice there's some QR codes on it as well, and that has the summary report which you can download onto your phone or computer. There's also a full technical report, if you're into that, 57 pages, which has got all the detail of the methodology and all the data, etc. And also, that's a QR code on the back of that 16-page report. It's also a QR code for the data tables. My apologies, we've got a technical problem that is up, but the QR code's not working at the moment, so we'll work over the next few days to try and get that up. But the notion is that you will have the data, that it's on the Open Science Framework Sharing Network. Anyone in the world can have the data. It's public data, and you can work it, you can check it, you can do whatever analysis you want on that. It's our data. It's funded from the government. It's your data. So it's up there on the Open Science Network. A little bit of the background of the day. Oh, actually, before I go on to this, I just want to acknowledge people who've travelled a bit. Could I get a sense of, if you could put your hand up for a minute, if you got here or to your hotel in an hour or less, put your hand up. Well done. Welcome to the Victorians. One thing I can say is it's warmer here than home, so lucky you guys, so welcome. If it took you between 1 and 2 hours to get here, from home to here or your hotel, put your hand up. Okay, welcome. If it took you between 3 and 4, put your hand up. Okay. Between 4 and 6, put your hand up. Thank you for that effort. Between 6 and 7, put your hand up. That'd be me. And so, more than 7 hours. If it took you more than 7 hours, put your hand up. You win. Welcome. What's your name? Correct. Well done. And where have you come from? Harvey Bay. Wow. What was that, sorry? Well, welcome. Let's give Rebecca and Heather thank you so much for making the effort of that. You know, in the bad old days when I was a clinical psychologist, one of my opening questions was, why are you here now? And there's three parts to that. It's like, well, why have you come? What's concerning you? What's the issue that's made? Why have you come to see me? In all of the other services around, how do you end up here with me? And the other question is, why now? Sometimes these things have been going on for years or decades. So why have you made the appointment now? And it's really quite informative. And you guys and all of us have made an effort to get here. And the question is, why are you here now? We're going to come back and revisit that. Just to reflect, like, we're so diverse, from diverse backgrounds, from diverse towns all across Australia, and our good friends across the ditch in New Zealand. And that's the question that we're going to come back to. A little bit about the data. So this is the data is every Australian. It's the census of pretty well every Australian. The census completion rate is really high, and we link. It's quite an innovative thing where we link the national census data with the death register data from each of the states and territories, and that's a huge piece of work because every state and territory has a different death register, and then the medical benefits scheme and the pharmaceutical benefits schedule. Data as well in terms of what's mental health related items. There was in this piece there was 5 million Australians who accessed mental health related treatments. In the full report there's a definition of that and every Medicare item and every pharmaceutical benefits item, and we've used the Australian Health Institute welfare items for that. And in that year there was roughly 160,000 deaths. Now, a few caveats around this data in Australia for the total population, which is pretty standard. Not everyone with a mental health condition accesses MBS. And MBS can be a GP or a psychiatrist or psychologist or other allied health worker who's got a registered as a provider for MBS. And as you will know, not everyone with a mental health concern accesses a GP. Not everyone with mental health concern accesses anyone. But a lot of people only access state services or only access NGO services or other services. The other thing is not everyone who has a mental health related item has a mental health condition. So for example, older people with dementia will often have antipsychotics, and you'll see that in the data in the full report how that antipsychotic just really shoots up in the older ages. The other thing which is interesting of note that it's every mental health related item. So if you see a GP or a psychologist or anything about anything that's mental health related, it comes up. So that can be someone with mild anxiety or very mild depression. It can be someone with very severe psychosis and bipolar disorder as well. So it's across a whole spectrum. A lot of the data you heard, and I noticed someone else quoted this, the minister, and it might have even been the lit review that we did of Equally Well, is about people with severe mental illness, the technical term that's used in a lot of publications. Well, this is across the spectrum. So it's not just the people, not only that group with severe mental illness, it's everyone who's contacted a GP. 5 million of us, 20% of the population almost exactly, just a little bit more. There's some of the caveats. Premature deaths. So in some of the terms we use to talk about premature death, once again we're using the OEC and the Australian Bureau of Statistics definition of that, which is between 15 and 74 years. It's kids, people under 15, there's all the childhood deaths and childhood infections, but also haven't had time to develop a chronic illness as well and to die from that. And over 75, dementia becomes quite a bit more. We do look at the all-age data because if you are 75, if you're looking at a healthy 75, that next 10 years is important. You would like to live to 85, or as I was talking to Simon, would like to live to 100. But I think the amount of running he does, he's got to run less because he'll be about 2 foot tall by the time he gets to 100. He runs marathons too often. But in 10 years, you can do a lot. So even for 75-year-olds, think what you can do in 10 years. You can learn the piano, you can get a PhD. What do you reckon, Michael? Get a PhD in 10 years' time, maybe less. You can learn to speak another language. You can learn to play golf in 10 years. So there's a lot, well, maybe you can't learn to play golf in 10 years, but you can do all of those other things. There's a lot you can do in 10 years. So the premature death is anyone who dies in this definition there. Age standardised is another thing. I'm going to get through the boring technical stuff in the middle and get into that in a sec. Age standardised just means as you get older, you're more prone to die. Basically, anyone over 75, 2 times more people in the population die over 74 than before. So as you get older, you're more likely to die. So, but the two populations are often different. So the age strata are different, even within age strata and cause of death. So with both samples, people who accessed mental health treatments and people who didn't, that samples have been age standardised to balance out the age. Against a specific reference population that the ABS use. And finally, excess deaths is another term which is a little bit new. And basically, once again, we've used the OEC definition. I won't go into reasons why. I think that's a very conservative definition for this sample. But essentially, it's like if people who access mental health services had the same standardised death rate as everybody else, that's how many people would die in that population. So basically that you're equally well. If you're not anyone above that, well, then you're unequally well. That's what we mean by excess deaths. And the OECD also call that potentially preventable deaths. So this group got the same access to services and support as the rest of the population. These deaths would be preventable. All right, away from the definitions. So some of this data we've seen. So basically, people who access mental health services are 2.5 times more likely to die prematurely. So we're looking at the rate, I can't see it from here, but memory about 3.9 per 1,000 up to 9 for the population group. It's actually worse for males than women, which is unusual in terms of gender gap, and it's probably possibly due to the health behaviours of males and also the lack of access to services, possibly. Don't know, that's just speculation, but that's the data. Look for every cause of death, though, for the main causes of death, and in the full report we report the 15 top causes of death. Basically, over twice the rate of premature death from every cause of death, except ischemic heart disease, which is a very interesting thing. It shows you some of the good work that the Heart Foundation's doing. And this data, the grey lines are the rest of the population who didn't access mental health services, and orange are the people who did access that. So basically, these are for 15 to 75-year-olds. The 20-odd% of people who access mental health services comprise over half of all premature deaths. Now, this is actually not new data. This is a replication of the work that ABS did in 2017. And we're going to track this, and hopefully we're going to track it for the next census as well. But this is new, and this is about the excess deaths. This has never been done before in Australia, so it is new data. Actually, I'm just going to go back a bit, because I've got a very important thing to do. I need to take a photo, because you're all looking pretty glum, and I want to take a photo of the moment. Now, can you just all pretend that Tess is talking or Faye Jackson's talking? So pretend that you're interested in it. It's fascinating, okay? So here we go. Now, can I also say, if you don't want to be in the photo, put your head down and disgrace yourself. So, and Michael Burge, someone who said that they weren't here 5 years ago, was actually front and centre, sitting where Simon is sitting today in this photo. So, and we had a great talk over in the library. I'm on the bench there. So if you could just all smile and imagine that the face talking, I've said something funny, and here we go. I'm going to do that again. Oh yeah, that's it. This is the money shot. Here we go. Okay, so this is new. Getting back to the serious stuff. The dark orange lines are potentially preventable or excess deaths. These, so the light line is what you'd expect if the death rate was the same as the rest of the population for that particular condition. So once again, the numbers have been age standardised by condition. Each condition has a standardised death rate in Australia, so it's age standardised for each condition. So that's been adjusted back under that notion. And you can see that 3 in 5 deaths of people who access mental health services are potentially preventable. Shame on us. What's going on here? This is what we've got to confront in the next few days in terms of how are we going to deal with this. This is just unacceptable. It's a violation of human rights and it's a violation of equitable access to decent services. Oh, thanks, Steve. So to put this in another perspective, for the total population, for the 19 million Australians, there's about 74,000 deaths in a year. For the 5 million Australians of all ages that accessed it, there should be about 30,000 deaths. How many do you think we would get? A few more. 87,000 deaths. There's 56,000 deaths every year in our total population that are excess and preventable. Now, I don't know about you, but there's some big social issues going on at the moment around services and tragic where people aren't getting support and services that they need. And they're getting support, they're getting acknowledgement, and they're getting funding. And quite right so, quite rightly, those issues that we all know about are getting a lot of attention and funding, as it should. So should this. It's not a competition, but we're talking about people's lives here. Every one of those people have a family and friends and a potential that's lost. It gets worse. For cancer, it gets worse, much worse. And so this is for people aged 15 to 74, so it's a smaller sample. It's about 21 million, I think, from memory, 18 million, sorry. So the 15 million Australians who did not access mental health services had about 7,000 cancer-related caused death using the ICD-10. And for the 3.5 million who did, between 15 and 74, we've got 13,000 deaths. And this is the really disturbing part. The bit in red are the excess deaths. There are more excess deaths of the 22% than there are total deaths for the 78%. This is not right. This is why it's equally unwell. And Kath Lowry here had shortened life expectancies, reduced life opportunities. This is just a violation of our human rights that we really have to do something about. And these are conservative estimates, can I say. We've calculated this on the OECD calculation. I won't go in why it's conservative, but they are conservative estimates, and they also resonate with all of the other research. This is a simple description of the data from one group to another. But when we look at this with all the other research, of which there are hundreds of systematic reviews and thousands of research studies that all back this up over every continent, that this is the case for people who have an experience of mental illness. Now, unlike some of our other wicked problems that we have in society, which are complex and culturally embedded and tough to address, there are some things we can do to help in this area quickly, in the short, medium, and hopefully in the long term. And here's proof. Look at what's happened for what we've done in Australia for people with heart disease over the last, in 5 years' time. This is a success. When we look for the total population, even though the population went up by about 10%, heart disease went down for the total population. Good on us. Preventive health screening interventions. It makes a difference. It's making a difference in Australia. Heart disease deaths, the raw number are going down, even though the population's going up. But look at the converging lines. So for the people who didn't access mental health services, it's going down a lot. But for people who did, it's not going down at all. That's a slight increase, but it just actually reflects the increase in the population. But what this says to me is we do have the services to make a difference. And we can make a difference not in a generation, but in 1 year or 5 years. And people are making a difference. I mean, there's people at Cessman and who are doing stuff. There's people in southeast Sydney. The work that they're doing in Queensland with smoking cessation is saving hundreds of lives. The work that Nehemiah is doing is saving lives through breast cancer screening. So there's lots of stuff that is happening and can happen. The work that Life in Mind and Jackie's team and everybody else is there is just fantastic. The same in New South Wales as some of the other work they're doing in older persons' mental health. So we can do it. It is making a difference. But the question is, are we doing enough soon enough? So here we are. How are we going for time? Actually, we're doing pretty. I only just started 10 minutes ago. It seems longer than that, Dave. No, we're running about 20 minutes on time, so we're going to have a few early minutes and maybe some time for question and discussion from the floor. So, why here now? I think we're here because we share something. We share a concern for the human rights. And like a family, we have different ways of working. We have different views, we have different perspectives, we annoy one another, but what we do, and sometimes it's not pleasant to be in the same house. It's a bit difficult and it's not great. Certainly in my family, it's not pleasant to be in my family when I've had a lentil curry that day. It's just very bad. And also in our family, sometimes there's things that make people difficult to be around. But we do share something. We share the commitment to human rights, and we share a commitment to improving the physical health and saving lives. And what do we bring? We bring our expertise with our lived experience, our experience of caring, our experience of policy, our experience of advocacy, our experience of clinical work, and our experience at service management. So we're here together, here now. And we've got an opportunity, I think, dare I say, a responsibility to do something about this. It's our call. So that's what this forum is about. It's going to really trying to make it equal. It's a fantastic venue where we're sitting at tables and we're going to have the workshops to work together. So the next few days, we want collectively as a family to have a call. Now, what might that look like? This is the other point. See this quote here? And that's from Sue Bailey. It was a report that Rethink Mental Illness in UK did. And it's from Professor Sue Bailey, who was the chair of the Royal College of Psychiatrists at the time, which is almost exactly the same as our data. But you know what? That was 2013. It was 11 years ago. Nothing's changed. We really have to have a call for action. We've got to step this up because people's lives depend on it, depending on us. So where to from here? Well, we hope to work together, and that's what the workshops are, to workshop ideas, work with the facilitators. Then we've got the Padlet, we've got the project team, we'll have sheets for your ideas. We're hoping to bring recommendations back from each workshop and open that up for the forum, for discussion, to test these ideas and work them out collectively and cooperatively. But once again, if you don't think it's being captured, jump on your Padlet and type in that your particular thing. We will look at this, as the team, the Equally Well team. Also, hop onto the WhatsApp group and put your great idea on that. How are we going to advocate? How are we going to do better? How can we learn from our friends who are advocating for other violations of human rights? One of the things we're thinking we might do is have a call to action, a national call to action, to highlight this data and have a call, and then get our friends from the colleges, from ESSA and the APS and the College of Psychiatrists and the GPs and from the peak bodies to partner with that and frame it the way that to their advantage. But it's a national call to action because we're talking about 46 preventable deaths a day. We really need to keep moving. We're thinking also maybe an open letter that we'll look to publish in the papers to just sort of get it and get people, the people that you have connections with, just to sign it. There's the levers for reform. We all have access to different levers, and sometimes we're not too sure which is the one that's actually going to make a difference. That's as a collective where we've got to sort of work and pull those levers for reform together, because no one has access to them all. And it may be, you know, a campaign to go and meet with your local member and take the report with you, and we can support you with other data and say, this is a problem. Can you raise this with the Minister for Health, the Minister for Mental Health, or the Shadow Minister for Health, because that will get through. And it's a government that really needs to take responsibility and support us in this respect. We really love to hear your story. The data is very dry and stuff, and the media and other people don't take that. The lived experience is what talks. It's the narrative that stays with people, people's journey and struggle around their physical health, the people who have an experience with a mental health concern. And anything else, this is what the next 2 days is about. We really want to share this and come together as a collective, support one another, affirm one another, recognise our differences, but affirm one another in our shared purpose. So why here now? I reckon, if not now, when? And if not here, where? And why? Because it matters. Thank you.